Picture a lonely farmhouse deep in rural Bavaria. Early spring of 1922. The farm was called Hinterkaifeck, and it was home to Andreas Gruber, his wife, Cecilia, their widowed daughter, Victoria Gabriel, Victoria's two young children, and a new maid, Maria Baumgartner. Just days before disaster struck, Andreas noticed something that made his blood run cold. Strange footprints in the snow led directly up to the house, but there were no tracks leading back out. At night, he and his family heard footsteps in the attic. They even found a newspaper from Munich lying around, even though nobody in the household had bought it. Then, keys began to vanish. The previous maid had already quit, saying she believed the place was haunted. On the evening of March 31st, the nightmare came to life. Someone lured family members into the barn one by one and killed them with a mattock, a heavy farming tool. Andreas, his wife, his daughter, and his granddaughter were bludgeoned to death and stacked under hay. Inside the house, the killer found Victoria's youngest child in his crib and murdered him, too. The new maid, Maria, was killed in her room on her very first night at the farm. But here's the part that makes Hinterkaifeck one of the most chilling crime scenes in history. The killer didn't just vanish, he stayed. For days, smoke rose from the farmhouse chimney. The animals were fed, meals were cooked. Someone lived there among the corpses while neighbors went about their lives unaware. When the bodies were finally discovered, the crime scene was already tainted. The investigation dragged on with more than 100 suspects questioned, but robbery was quickly ruled out. Money and valuables were untouched. No clear motive ever surfaced. Some whispered about family secrets. Others pointed to angry neighbors. A few even leaned toward the supernatural. But the truth never came out. The mattock, the murder weapon itself, was never recovered. To this day, Hinterkaifeck remains one of Germany's darkest and most disturbing cold cases. Now we move to America, to a wooded area just outside Philadelphia in February of 1957. A man, walking through the brush, stumbled upon a discarded cardboard box. Inside was the body of a little boy, somewhere between 4 and 6 years old. He was small, malnourished, and bore the marks of abuse. His hair had been crudely cut, and his body showed bruises and injuries that suggested a life of suffering. There was no name, no identification, nothing to tell police who he was. He quickly became known as the boy in the box, or, more somberly, America's unknown child. His image was printed in newspapers nationwide. Sketches and photos were circulated. Police, volunteers, and even the public worked tirelessly to identify him. Thousands of leads came in. Families with missing children were investigated. None of them matched. The boy was buried, and the years turned into decades. Detectives reopened the case more than once. Forensic science was applied whenever new technology became available. But his name remained a mystery. Theories spread. Some thought he was the victim of an abusive foster home. Others suggested he had been abandoned or trafficked. Each lead seemed promising at first, but every single one hit a dead end. The most haunting part of this story is how completely forgotten this child was in life, and how he became a national symbol of children who suffer in silence. The boy in the box case still stands as one of the most tragic and unsolved crimes in American history.
Our third case takes us to Springfield, New Jersey, in the summer of 1972. Jeannette DePalma was just 16 when she disappeared. For days, no one knew where she had gone. Then hikers made a disturbing discovery on a wooded cliff. Her body was lying there, lifeless, surrounded by strange objects and markings in the dirt. Witnesses said they saw symbols that looked like crosses and other ominous signs. It was enough to ignite rumors that her death was linked to witchcraft or occult rituals. The details of her murder were murky from the start. The cause of death wasn't completely clear. What was clear was the unsettling atmosphere around the case. Locals whispered about secret cults, satanic practices, and dark ceremonies taking place in the woods.
Police investigated thoroughly. They interviewed dozens of people. They explored every possible lead, but nothing solid ever came forward. The rumors, however, grew louder. Some people claimed they knew of groups practicing rituals in the area. Others said Jeannette was a victim of something even darker than anyone wanted to admit. Over time, the case faded into cold storage, only to be reopened periodically by journalists and amateur investigators who couldn't let go of its mysteries. Jeannette's death has never been solved. The occult stories may have been exaggerated, or they may have been closer to the truth than authorities wanted to admit. Either way, the DePalma case remains one of New Jersey's most eerie and perplexing unsolved murders. What ties these three cases together is not just the brutality, but the silence that followed. In Bavaria, a killer lived among the dead without being caught. In Philadelphia, a child's identity was erased before the world could even know his name. And in New Jersey, a teenage girl's death was swallowed by rumors and left unresolved. These stories linger because they refuse to give us closure. They remind us that evil often leaves behind more questions than answers. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to this channel if you love mysteries that remains unsolved all over the world. We uncover those stories for you.